Now, the glam rock band Kiss have sold their music and image rights in what's understood to be a deal worth more than $300 million. It is a lot of money. So that song, Rock and Roll All Night, as well as the rest of their catalogue, iconic black and white stage, makeup and outfits, are now owned by a Swedish music investor. It's kind of how all of these things are ending up. These rights are being sold up, aren't they?
I love the look. I've never got bored of that look. Not a weekend look or anything like that, but it's a good look.
Quite glam look, isn't it?
Yeah, talking of which. Hello, Carol.
Good morning, both.
The UK government has revealed how much companies will need to pay to import some foods from the EU due to Brexit. The fee will apply to shipments of foods including fish, sausages, cheese, yoghurt. It will be capped at £145 per load, and the charges will pay for border inspections and new facilities in Kent to protect biosecurity.
So, people, farmers, always interested in the weather. It makes a massive difference, basically, to their livelihood.
Potatoes, right, grown in the ground, obviously. If it's so wet, the ground is so wet in so many parts of the country, and that's got to be affecting the crops and the price of food, obviously, if they're damaged. Now, this is what Ben's finding out about. He is at a potato farm in York for us this morning, where, glad to see, plenty of potatoes on the conveyor belt. Hi, Ben.
Yes, good morning. You can't move for potatoes in this place, and with good reason. These are all being processed by Kasia and Sophia. They are checking them, making sure only the very best potatoes leave the factory. These are all on their way to Aldi stores across the north of England. They'll be packed up. These will be on the shelves by tomorrow morning. And this factory also supplies walkers for the potatoes to make your crisps. What you will have noticed is that potatoes have gone up in price, and quite sharply. In fact, some varieties have gone up more than a fifth in price, by 22% in 1 month alone. One example that we picked out, one of the biggest price rises, Sainsbury's Maris Pipers, a 2-kilo bag. Middle of January, it would have cost you £1.35. In the middle of February, it was up to £1.65. And those price rises at the start of this year come on top of price increases last year, where across all potato products, prices went up on average 11.5%. In large part, it's down to the rainy weather, it's hit the harvest, and it means there's less supply, and that has pushed the prices up.
Buckingham Palace's East Wing will open to visitors for the first time this summer. Guided tours will be shown areas including the palace's front facade and central balcony, where the monarch and members of the royal family have gathered for public appearances and those famous waves since the 1800s. It follows more than 5 years of improvement works. A new exhibition which will allow those who are visually impaired to experience the joy of photography is set to open at Somerset House this week. Called World Unseen, it's inviting all visitors, whether they are blind, partially sighted or sighted, to experience photography in a completely new and immersive way. It includes raised prints, soundscapes and braille descriptions.
Let's take a look at today's papers. Now, several front pages are focusing on the latest of the Israel-Gaza conflict. The Guardian's leading with a letter which has been signed by more than 600 lawyers, academics and retired judges, which claims that the UK government is breaching international law by continuing to arm Israel. Intolerable is the Metro's headline. It quotes Rishi Sunak's reported phrase to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after that fatal strike on aid workers earlier this week.
Times leading with that story about a potentially game-changing NHS Alzheimer's trial, which it says strives to improve early diagnosis rates. More on that a little later on this programme this morning as well. And according to the Daily Telegraph, judges have been told to consider more lenient sentences for offenders from deprived or difficult backgrounds, but critics say the guidance from the Sentencing Council is patronising.
See anything on the insides?
Well, I see that you're looking at the story about the moon, which, if I'm honest, I did glance at that and I didn't really understand.
Shall I give it a go?
Try.
OK. On Earth, when our clocks are set and everything, We use Coordinated Universal Time, UTC, or GMT, right? So it's an internationally recognised standard that relies on atomic clocks all around the world. And you would have heard on yesterday's programme that time may be changing. Like, we may be gaining or losing a little bit of time.
Okay.
And this has gone into the detail of it. And the reason this is being looked at is because there's so much more exploration to the moon. And the idea is that we'll be spending a lot more time on the moon.
Wherein lies the problem?
The problem is, at the moment, if you go to the moon, you're using Earth time. And that's got to change, because it won't be accurate. So if it's not accurate, all GPS systems, satellite navigation systems could change. So if we go back to Einstein's theory of relativity, this goes on to the idea that gravity is stronger and time passes more slowly on Earth. Gravity is less on the moon, so time will pass more quickly. So they're going to be two different time zones.
Presumably, if NASA, if the Space Control Centre and the people on the moon have different times, that'll be a problem, right?
Yes, that's the whole reason.
A little closer to Earth, reading these figures about Britain's consumption of takeaways, not surprisingly, during COVID, it went up enormously. So the amount we consumed via takeaways went up hugely during COVID, but hasn't come down much. So basically, in 2022, which is now, the average adult consumed 400 calories a week from takeaways.
That's not much.
Well, at its peak, it was 470 a week in 2019. Now, before, it was 270 a week. So it went up enormously during COVID, has come down a bit, but is still a lot higher than pre-COVID. We've got into the habit of buying a lot more takeaways.
But if you think, right, isn't there an average, and I know it changes from the size of the person and metabolism, etc., but it's something like you're supposed to take 1,800, 2,000 calories if you're a woman, more if you're a man, each day, 2.5, right? So 470 calories over a week isn't much.
Yes, but
it's not something we should worry about, is it?
We're having basically twice as many takeaways as we were before the pandemic. That's kind of, it boils down to that. Whether you think that's a good idea or not is,
more
I don't
people
know.
probably cooking at home.
Maybe.
During the pandemic,
Maybe.
so they're spending more time at home.